Okay, hi folks, this is Anthony again for Nintendo Nation Throwback Thursday. This game is Back to the Future for the NES, and I used to play this game as a kid, but I never owned it actually. My friend Eric owned it, and whenever I went over to his place, I'll be honest, I always asked to play this game. Now, Eric was kind of like one of those friends who had an NES, but he had like all the weird games that nobody ever really had. Like he had Adventures of Tom Sawyer, he had Funhouse, which is based on the game show, he had Who Framed Roger Rabbit, TNC Surf Design, Tecmo World Wrestling, just a lot of games that like I didn't have. I mean, like he had all the popular ones too, like Zelda and Super Mario Brothers 2 and 1. But he also had games like this, like Back to the Future. And so whenever I went over to his place, I always asked for this game just because, well, it was so not what I'm used to. Because I usually kept most of the good games, well, I should say mainstream games. I shouldn't say good games, because that would imply that this would be a bad game. But in actuality, I actually kind of like this game, and I know you'll go on the internet and you'll look this game up and you'll see that it was made by LJN, which is supposedly notorious for like the worst games ever on the NES, and really I don't think they're that bad. They have some stinkers, but like Bill and Ted's Excellent Video Game Adventure, which is really bad, which maybe I'll do one day. But this game, really, it's more like sort of a Paperboy derivative, and it doesn't really follow the movie, but I think that's what I like about it. It takes the movie a little literally, and it changes it into a video game format, and that's what's strange about it. I mean, like, if back then, when, you had an NES, there wasn't a really good way to make a real good movie to game translation. Nowadays, like on an Xbox One or a PS4, you can pretty much have these cinematic scenes that make you feel like you're playing a movie. But back then on an 8-bit system, I mean, this is what you got. You got like arcade gameplay with the theme of the movie. And so I should explain what's happening here. I mean, you're Marty McFly, and as you can see, there's sort of like a picture in the lower part of the screen. And that's supposed to be the picture of your family. That's in the movie, it's like disappearing. And if it fully disappears, you die. And you're running through Hill Valley on these streets that really, really make no sense. Like, I'm waiting for it to go back to the action scene, but you're running there trying to get to the soda shop, which is really the destination where you'll do this mini game. And I do make it there, so I can show you that. And you're collecting these random clocks, avoiding people like those guys who are like holding a piece of glass. They're just moving back and forth. These giant killer bees are flying everywhere. There's open manhole covers. This is the craziest street on the planet. Plus, there are some inhuman-like turns. Like, I don't know if we'll see one, but here, like, what car could make that corner turn? That's like insane. Why would you have turns like this? Also, I don't know what's wrong with Hill Valley, but there's garbage and oil spills everywhere. Not to mention cloned hula hoop girls all over throwing, I don't know what they're throwing at you, rocks. And I love it when Marty's on the floor, he's like clawing at the ground whenever he gets, it's just like, oh, get me out of this game. It's hilarious. My basic mode of transportation is just running, but and then you grab these bowling balls to defend yourself, like you throw bowling balls. Like, these killer bees are just killing me like crazy. I was usually, back as a kid, I was a little better at this game. I could avoid everything, but this is actually somewhat poor showing. Let me jump over that oil spill right into a killer bee. Anyway, you collect all the clocks so that you prevent yourself from disappearing from that photo. So each clock you get like adds time to that photo so that you won't be eliminated. You lose a guy. Like, I mean, me bumping into a bee or whatever, I lose time, and every time you lose time, you get more chances for the photo to disappear. So really, once you disappear from the photo, that's when you lose a life. And actually, when you get to the cafe, you lose a life when and you'll see this when you get accosted by one of the bullies. I think Biff's minions. Biff is like another character from the movie. And if you haven't seen Back to the Future, you have to get yourself from out underneath that rock and watch it. Like, it was like the best movie. And unfortunately, this is the NES game, which just doesn't really do it justice, but it's quirky and fun in its own way. You see that I threw a bowling ball at a hula hoop girl. Was that violence actually warranted? I'm not sure. But it's just a crazy game. And I'll be honest, I like the music too. It's repetitive, it's loopy, it's kind of arcadey. People will say this game is really bad, but really I find it somewhat amusing. And I think that's probably the best term for this. It's amusing. It's kind of funny. It's trying to follow the plot of the movie, but they do it in this weird ways. And like, Marty McFly did not collect clocks on an empty Hill Valley street. And in fact, there were no killer bees or moving men with plates of glass that don't seem to be moving anywhere, or bowling balls in the middle of the street. It's just that stuff is all made as part of the gameplay as forced obstacles just to make a game. Now, this was developed by Beam Software, and they were, I think, a Melbourne based development company who made a whole bunch of other games on PCs. And most notably, I think I know them most for the Super Nintendo version of Smash TV, which was called Super Smash TV, and they did a great job on that. Of course, they didn't create that game; they just reprogrammed it for the SNES. Bally Midway made that game, but they did a great job with that. And I think they probably made a couple other bad games on the NES. I think one of them is Bad Street Brawler, which was for the Power Glove. Actually, it's a fighting game. And you can play it with a regular controller, but it's really, really bad. Sort of like a Double Dragon thing. Oh, this is where I actually make it to Lou's Cafe. Now, the hard part about this is you have to line yourself up with the enemy so you can throw these, I think, mugs of root beer. I'm not sure what it is. And it's kind of like, I guess, a sideways Space Invaders, or I don't really know how to explain this, or Tapper. Yeah, it's kind of like Tapper, I guess. And because of the perspective, it's really hard to tell if you're lined up with the bully at all. I mean, there is a smart bomb. I think if you press the other button, all bullies on the screen get demolished. Oh, here's where I got caught by the bully. And look, it's so funny. He slides me across, and that is just the worst graphics. You just turn into a blob when you hit that door, and then you slide down the door, and you don't know where your limbs are. It's just I don't know, you're crushed. Now there's the hard part. If you don't make this, they send you back to the street. Classic Nintendo hard, you go back to the beginning of the pattern type of deal. And here I am back with all the craziness on this street. Again, Hill Valley has the strangest infrastructure. And who leaves these clocks all around? And as you can see, the houses are they have no pathways to the sidewalk. It's just they're just gated communities. And actually, the perspective is all wrong. It's you must be a giant, because if you look at how big the houses are and look how big you are, it doesn't really. Look at, you're as huge as that one wall on the house. It's funny, and these garbage cans just crack me up. They're just dumped over. Okay, here I get the skateboard. Now this makes you move faster, which is good, so you save some time. And I made it there. I think I'm gonna get to the cafe again. After the cafe, I think you gotta battle it again out on the streets, and then you gotta make it to the enchantment under the sea dance. Where I think you're playing oh no, I'm sorry. I think you make it to the high school first, and you gotta catch Lorraine's hearts, or deflect her hearts, because she's fallen in love with you. And obviously that's incestuous because Lorraine is your mom. And I think then after that you make it to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, where you're playing your guitar and you gotta play in tune or something so that Marty's dad and Lorraine like fall in love or something like that. So I mean, if they just take it to the most literal sense for this game. Oh, here I lost it. Totally get chucked across the diner counter again. Smack. Anyway, I know this game gets a lot of hate from people on the internet, but really, I played much worse on the NES, and this one reminds me of my good times at Eric's house. So it'll always be something, although I never bought it as a kid and I own it now, I like this game, so I'm giving it a thumbs up. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. Peace out.